Maagavan and Melanine, and well met indeed. I am Arachir Galadirthan, the head of the modding team behind Divide and Conquer, and welcome back to Divide and Conquer as we continue on, as this time with our faction overview of the realm of Isengard, or Isengard. I think it's just Isengard. I can't remember. Now, I've started this at this exact point and I'll come onto it more in the script section, but first of all, just allow me to say to anybody that plays as Isengard, please, 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 at least read the bottom two sentences or paragraphs of this. It just literally tells you that Saruman must be the general who gets the ring. It has to be Saruman. If an orc general gets the ring script will no longer work for Isengard. He has to be the person to get the ring. So I just wanted to cover that there. So make sure Saruman gets the ring. Right, so with that out of the way, we're now at turn 2. Let's crack on. I cut the two videos together if you're wondering. Ha ha ha! Witty. So, welcome to the Isengard overview. So, starting with the size of your domain in your initial army. Well, as you might imagine, starting as Isengard, you start only with Isengard. Now, if you're wondering about Isengard, it's called Isengard because it literally means Guard of the River Isen, which is this one rolling down the hills there. So that's where its name comes from. The tower itself, of course, is called Orthanc. And it is indeed a citadel or a castle, so you'll always be able to train a lot out of Isengard. But it starts as your only town. You have one region, Isengard. Your army consists of Saruman himself. We'll get onto what he has in a moment. You've got some Uruk-hai infantry, who are very, very useful, very, very strong. 2 units of raiders and 2 units of archers, the kind of militia level of the Uruk-hai. We'll cover those in the second half of the video. In the first fort, you have a unit of half-orc Bane Guard and a unit of half-orc Spear Guard, the interim between your raiders and your militia and your fully-fledged Uruk-hai. Also, we are, of course, known that Saruman breeds half-orcs. He's one of the few who does. They are distinct from Uruk-hai. That was another of my mistakes. Uruk-hai are just a stronger version of orcs. We are unsure how they came about, what breed they came from, how they were bred, but they are kind of a subspecies of orc that is just better. But half-orcs are distinctly half-orc, half-human, and Saruman gets a couple of those, with Ugluk in the fort there, which, if you play on the battle map, is indeed a Gondorian fort, owing to Isengard being a Gondorian castle, which is just now held by the forces of evil. Your only other army is in the far south, that's barely any distance at all. In the fort just further south of that, which is a standard Northman fort, you will find your factionaire Lurtz, and an identical army to what Ugluk has, just with a bit more experience. You also get Grima Wormtongue, of course, who is, as you might imagine, a diplomat. And if you're playing as other factions, he's very eager to bribe you, and he's also very eager to take bribes. But of course, in version 2.0, that is no longer possible. Also, this is the first video that shows off the resources on the map. You may already be seeing some. This is the new village, courtesy of the elite dwarf. Here is a new mill. Now, the mill needs some special talk because the mill every single mill actually does look exactly the same. So this is the grain mill. It gives you grain, provides a minor trade resource. Those have all been updated to be accurate now as well. But the grain mill is actually a set box. It's a square of farmland with a small mill in the middle. However, because it clips with the terrain, as you can see, no two mills ever look identical. Although those two look pretty damn identical. But if we head over, for example, to Karasant, you'll see that that one's got grain on the left, that one's got grain on the right, because it clips with the hills. So it just looks really good because it's no two of them are the same, and I really like that. You'll also notice we've got the new icons now above the forts. I tried to make them all be central, but it's not really gone down too well. But anyway, this video is about Isengard. So if you see any of the resources in the background, there's a lumberyard there. There's more villages there. There's the new Hobbit tobacco and Hobbit village, or it's called a Hobbit farmstead. Those are very, 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 very wealthy, very useful to get. There's some sheep there. There's the orchard there. There's a vineyard there. There's a lot of those in Dorwinion, of course. And they all just now blend in with the terrain more than just having a horse or an apple or a piece of grain or a bit of wood. And whilst, yes, some of them aren't, I will give you that. Oh, look, we've got some doubles. Yeah, that is true. Got to fix that. Remember, this is my work in progress build, so it updates as I update. And as you can see, the Durance Tower hasn't actually been added yet. Hasn't been added to my game properly, at least, anyway. So that's still currently showing a tobacco pipe. But anyway, all of that by the by. So that was your starting army. Not very big, not very big at all. Gives you a reasonable challenge at the beginning. So then leader, capital, unique bodyguards, and diplomat. Well, your diplomat at the start is Grima Wormtongue, and you train more if he dies or is he bribed or whatever out of the Orthanc itself. Where you can get diplomats, you can also get clan spearmen, you can get quite a few units from Dunland actually, and guards of the Orthanc and sentries of the Orthanc, who are here. One is a elitish kind of crossbow unit, and the other being an elitish defensive unit. Quite a lot of training potential, as you can see from Isengard. So what do your generals all have? Well, Saruman, of course, has a unique model. There he is. Let's try and get them all to stand next to each other. Saruman has a unit of guards of the Orthanc, as you might imagine. They're essentially Isengard's best unit if you take out Trolls of the White Hand. Ugluk, who has a unique model. He does have a unique model. He has Berserkers as his bodyguard, so he runs around with some Berserkers. And Lurtz, who again has a unique model, as you can see, he has Berserkers as well. So both of those have Berserkers. Your standard generals, of course, are just normal Uruk-hai generals, as you'll see in the second half of the video. Your capital is, of course, Isengard, and Saruman is your leader. So, Rebel expansion. Well, as you can see, your only options are to go south. If you don't want to go to war with Rohan just yet, who are, as you can see, neutral, you have to go through Ginyard, Derwath, and Bregnas, and then possibly beat either Enedwaith or Gondor to Gund, because both of them will try and get there. So do watch out for that. But your only options are to go south. So then after that, who are you going to fight, and who are your friends and enemies? Well, Dunland start as your only ally. As you will see from the diplomacy, they are your only ally, and your only enemy are the Ents of Fangorn to the north, just up there in the Ent home, the only town of the Ents. Rohan start neutral, but they do, of course, start right next to you. War with them is inevitable. You can try and get peace with them, but because Dunland and Rohan start at war, you'd have to break ties with Dunland in order to ally with Rohan. But if you want to play that way, you can. It's total war. Play it how you will. Of course, the other unknown are Enedwaith. They are unlikely to attack you if they feel you are particularly strong, but they are quite likely to attack you if they feel they can get the drop on you. That's honey, by the way. So with Enedwaith, it's very, very unsure what will happen with them. They often go to war with Dunland as well. So every single campaign with Enedwaith is different. Sometimes they'll want to ally with you. Sometimes they'll want to attack you. Sometimes they'll attack Gondor and ally with you, or they'll attack both of you, Gondor and you. And they're just a wild card, so you can never really tell what they're going to do. And of course, so speaking of Gondor, you might also come into contact with them through the western passes of the Path Yor, or the Druaith Yor, and the far coast of Anfalas, or the long coast. So those are all of your neighbours and enemies. So then economy and buildings. You're an Orcish nation, so you can upgrade castles only once to a castle, from a Motte and Bailey up to a castle. And you can only get... You can't get the stronghold. In terms of towns, though, you can go all the way. Isengard is a reasonably wealthy castle, but because it is a castle, not a town, there are some restrictions. So you won't be able to get everything. You won't be able to get every building. And as I've recently been told, if you click on the opposite one to what the town actually is, it shows you every level of every building, regardless of their... Oh, I wonder why the dungeon looks different to the butchery and the torture church. Like, there's a missing line there. Missing building. Anyway, sorry. Massively distracted. So the castle won't get as much because it's obviously not a city. So you won't get as much on the farming and things like that. But you can make a reasonable amount of money. And also remember that you get the logging house. And the logging house... which, if you build it, will reduce your training costs, retraining costs. It increases tradable goods quite substantially, and building costs are reduced by 5%. But it will kick off the rolling Ent script, which we will get to in a minute. So in terms of economy, there aren't really very many wealthy regions around you either. I mean, Edoras is a wealthy region, or has the potential to be. That's quite a key place to go. But heading north and west, there's nowhere out there that's really that wealthy until you get to Londair, and even that's not amazing. So... I doubt you'll ever find yourself swimming in money, but you tend to always at least make money. I mean, if we put everybody back into the forts where they belong, at game start, we can't get Saruman in there, you're earning about 1,400-ish. So you're not going to be swimming in money, but you're also never going to be poor. So that's your economy. There aren't really too many unique buildings other than, as I've already mentioned, the logging house. And in terms of guilds, you just get the fighter's pit, which just increases experience of troops and then experience for all troops faction-wide. But remember, you can only get one Brawler's Hall, so that one of those per faction. So it just increases everywhere that doesn't have the other guild. So then we come on to scripts, and of course there are two key scripts here. The first I've already touched upon is the Ent script. If you build the logging house, you can build the first half before the barracks event, and then you can build the second and third tier, or possibly the third tier. There are 3 tiers, and at each tier it gives you massive economic bonuses, but at each tier it kind of warns you that continuing down this path will bring about the wrath of the Ents, and if you therefore then complete the logging house, the Ents will attack you. Now this is an excellent little check, because if you have ever fought the Ents before in Total War on its own, the non-DaC version, so just Third Age, or maybe even in Moss or something like that, and the Ents crash your game, then in order to never have to fight the Ents without having the ability to auto-resolve, you need only not build the last tier of the logging house. They will not attack you unless all 3 tiers of logging house are built. If all 3 tiers of the logging house are built. Unfortunately, you can't actually see the logging house, which is very annoying. Which is a shame. And from this side as well. Oh, no, that needs a boar breeder. So you can build the second one before the barracks event, but the third tier is cut off. So the third tier after the barracks event. Now, when the Ents do attack you, I'm pretty sure you can auto-resolve. But if you can't, then just don't build that third tier. The Ents will never attack. You can beat them by taking Treebeard's Hill. Allow me also just to mention at this point, because Isengard are one of the factions you're most likely to attack this with, if you manage to capture Treebeard's Hill, a small town in there, there is a script that will then kick in that will send 6 additional armies from the Ents to attack you until the faction is then destroyed. Now, if you beat that army and it pulls back into the forest, it might then attack you again. So you have to outright defeat it. And if you outright defeat all 6 retaliatory strikes, then the Ent Nation as a faction will be defeated. They'll be gone. They're out of the game. So it isn't a bug. If you take the town, it then tries to retake it 6 times with 6 different Ent armies. And you have to defend them all off. So it's just a challenge. It's meant to just be a challenge. But if Ents crash your game, then just auto-win. Just learn the cheat to auto-win and just auto-win past them. Sorry, I knocked the microphone. Or indeed auto-resolve. Auto-resolve is better, but no one's going to worry if you've cheated to beat them. So that's all the Ents. Right, so then the ring script. The big thing of the ring script. Isengard is so unique in DaC in having this little particular script, and it's really cool. And what it is when the ring kicks in after 25 turns, if you take the town that has the ring, and Saruman is the general to get the ring, he must be the general to get the ring. If Saruman is not the general who gets the ring, you cannot do the Isengard ring script. You have to then set when it pops up then to ask you, do you want to give the ring to Saruman or Sauron? If Saruman has not got the ring in his ancillary list, then you must click the Sauron option and go and give it to Sauron. Because if you just hold on to it, then nothing will happen. Well, I mean, you don't have to click the Sauron option, but if you don't, nothing will happen. The script will end there. Saruman has to be the one to get the ring. And if you're playing as Isengard, and you bother going for the ring, I would say 10 times out of 10, all of you are going to choose the ring for Isengard, because it's just fun. But, so, if Saruman is the general who takes the city that has the ring, take all the other generals out of that army, he has 7 or less ancillaries, then he will get the ring. The ring script will kick in for Isengard. They then bring the ring back to Isengard, and then it all kicks off. Saruman becomes Saruman of many colours. He changes his campaign model, which is pretty cool. And you then can train a new unit, which is outrageously powerful, and they are called the Nazgûl. We'll see them in the second half of the video. That just means ring folk of the ring in the Black speech of Mordor. And they're just kind of like an Uber version of Berserkers. I like Berserkers on steroids. And they're really, really very powerful. But that's not all. You also get all 9 Nazgûl, including the Witch King and... I've forgotten his name. I've forgotten his bloody name. Him. Who's the leader of Dol Guldur? Oh, it'll come to Khamûl the Easterling. There you go. So you get Khamûl as well as the Witch King. But they come in the order of seniority. So you'll get 7 of the other just generic Nazgûl. And then you'll get Khamûl. And then you'll get the Witch King. Now, if a situation arises whereby all the other generals of Dol Guldur have been killed, then when Khamul and the other Witch King join and the other Nazgul join you, then Dol Guldur will be defeated as a faction. But then this gentleman up here should hopefully stop that from happening. But so that shouldn't happen, but it can. So do be aware of that. By you getting Khamul can mean that you'll get Khamul. Now, as far as I'm aware as well, if a Nazgul dies whilst Saruman is still alive, because remember, characters can die of old age. I mean, there's no way around that. Saruman will eventually die. And when he does die, be it through battle or through old age, consider old age Saruman succumbing to the power of the ring. Whilst he may be powerful enough to control it for some time, he'd never be powerful enough to have it forever, and it would eventually consume and destroy him. And consider old age the ring just basically bringing about the total destruction of Saruman's mind. But he will eventually die, and if he does die, all of the Nazgul, even the ones of Dol Guldur... the Nazgul will then return to their respective factions. So if Mordor are still alive, then the Nazgul would return to them. If Dol Guldur is still alive, the Nazgul will return to them. So when Saruman does die, the Nazgul will leave you. But when he is alive, if they die, I'm fairly certain they will respawn back to you. So... But I can't remember if that was ever worked in or not. I think it was. So if they die, they'll come back to you. If they don't, they'll go back to Mordor. Right, in your current versions, 1.2, this video was recorded on the 20th of February 2017, and in version 1.2, if you take the ring as Isengard, you can destroy... well, you can't. If you take the ring as Isengard, in version 1.2... it is impossible to destroy Mordor, I'm afraid. Once you take their final settlement, the game will crash. So if you do that and you're going for world domination in 1.2, you unfortunately won't be able to get it. Because there will always have to be one last Mordor settlement. Because if you try and take the last Mordor settlement, the game will freeze and crash. However, in version 2.0, that has already been fixed. And so if you are playing this, if you have this on 2.0 or later... then when you have the ring as Isengard, you can defeat Mordor by simply taking all of their regions. If then Saruman dies after you've defeated Mordor, all 9 Nazgul will go to Dol Guldur if they aren't already dead. If Dol Guldur are dead, you can kill them just by taking their factions. There's no bugs or anything around that. If Dol Guldur are dead and then Saruman dies, the Nazgul will return to Mordor, all 9 of them. So that is that. Now, in addition to this, if you do take the ring as Saruman, every single evil nation will either declare war on you or their relations with you will drop to the absolute minimum. Essentially, taking the ring turns the entire world against you, and you have to fight everyone. And your reward for that, as low as you may see it, is just the Nazkai, possibly one of the game's best units, and the Nazgul. Now, the Nazgul get a unit of Nazkai as their bodyguards, which makes them even more formidable. So it's really, really powerful. And it really is just a fun little script. By the time you get the ring, normally you're at a point where you're really quite powerful anyway, because it's quite a campaign to go heading off to one of the good nation's towns to get the ring. And by that time, you'd normally be in a good position anyway. So by the time you get it back, the fact that everyone is now at war with you shouldn't really matter. But that is what the ring script will do. Take a breath. Right, so garrison. As an Orc nation, you'll get a garrison in Isengard. You will only then get a garrison in Mordor, which is Barad-dûr, in all of Mordor's starting regions, I think. You'll get a garrison in the town of Dol Guldur, or the castle of Dol Guldur itself. You'll get a garrison in the mountains, and you'll get a garrison in Angmar. And you will also get a garrison in any of the rebel villages that you can currently see. So any rebel region that is currently rebel, if you take that region and upgrade the town 1 level from its starting level, you will get a garrison there as well. So if we capture Ginyard and turn it into a town, we will then get a garrison. If we took Bregnas and turned it into a large town, we would then get a garrison. We can't upgrade Derwath, so we'll never get a garrison in Derwath. That's the boss of that. So that is the script for Isengard. So, key map changes. There aren't too many key map changes in the Isengard region from version 0.5. I don't think, in fact, there are any nearby to Isengard. Oh, Fangorn is now only 1 region, whereas in 0.5 it was 2 regions. Rochberg has been added, which may affect your campaign if playing as Isengard, so there's Rochberg now. But other than that, very few changes. There's a couple of forts. I don't think there were 2 forts here in 0.5. I think there may have only been 1, possibly. Also, this fort here is new, the rebel fort there. But other than that, not very many map changes at all. Isengard itself has been changed by the Elite Dwarf since the earlier version. The flag is now always on top of the model, so you can always see what the actual units within it are. It's not obscured by the tower itself. And he added the orc tents around the ring as well, so just a nice little nod to their evil nature now. There's also the new banner changes courtesy of Black Goldfish, and we've got the more stylized white hand symbol. So then, tips and difficulty as Isengard. I would suggest rushing Rohan as fast as possible. It's really the only tip I've got. If Enedwyth do attack you, they are no match for you. You'll easily beat them. So don't even worry about them. But Rohan, I'd suggest trying to rush the Hornburg as fast as possible. Rohan aren't very good as the AI, because the AI in Medieval 2 was never very good with cavalry. It's not very good with cavalry on the battle map when it actually gets to control them. And the auto-resolve is so biased against cavalry that cavalry is almost a detriment in your army in the auto-resolve. We've done everything we can to make cavalry better, but it's still never going to be viewed as strongly as straight-up infantry are. So Rohan don't do very well as the AI. So it's worthwhile getting rid of them early, because Gondor will probably be a problem for you, or anyone that you want to take on, because you start in quite an isolated, dare I say, position. Unless you go for Rohan and then just naturally go through and take Gondor, where you won't really have any trouble. Because Gondor, if you get involved with Gondor and Mordor and Harad and Khand are all attacking them, they'll fall. So if you do go that way, it'll be a reasonably easy game. But if you go the other way, by the time you reach Lindon and Ered Luin and Erebor, for example, even Bree and the Dunedain, you will find a real challenge in the north. The dwarves will give you a real run for your money. So if you do tend to go north and take out Enedwyth, cross the Gwathlo, head up into Lindon, you'll have an actual challenge. Whereas I would submit that if you go for Gondor and Rohan, it's a bit of a cakewalk faction, to be honest. So difficulty is medium, I would say. But that concludes the campaign half, so I'll see you on the battle map. Welcome to the battle map side. So a quick overview of Isengard shows that they're not particularly ranged and they are not very cavalry heavy at all. You are a heavy infantry orc nation, as we will see with the Uruk-hai, the orc folk. But, so the barracks event split as well is quite biased, really. Most of your units come after the barracks event. In fact, almost all of them do. The only one I'm unsure of, I actually looked up the Baneguard and I still might have got something wrong because I only looked up Baneguard, but I'm pretty sure they're after the barracks event. But the Berserkers you might be able to get in a small number before the barracks event. I couldn't quite remember. But either way, that's where they would really come. They're very powerful. Very powerful indeed. But also, there's quite a few AORs dotted around. So that unit, which is one of your best, is AOR, as is that unit, which is your best archer, as is that unit, which is your best cav. So you 3 Uber units are all AOR. They're all restricted by locations. So you're a quite middling army, but then you've got a few specks of real power. But as not much has changed since 0.5, I'll only tarry ere long on the units that are new. The rest of them I'll just quickly flick over. So Uruk Reavers are still here. They are still one of your early shock troops. Quite a reasonably high attack, effective against armor, nice charge, and not a great defense to speak of, but they're just a much better version of Orc Fellas. The morale with almost all Orcs and all Uruks is pretty poor. They're bred and they live for war. If they can't really contemplate or fathom anything else, and they break and run quite easily if there is no one to really guide and steer them. And they look pretty good, actually. Their model's very crisp and clear, isn't it? Very good model. So that's the Orc Reavers, but your real kind of trash are Orc Band, donated to you from Mordor, are your real scum, the arrow fodder, the units you use to tie up the enemy to then send better units around the sides, the Orc Band. A useless unit. I mean, its defense is 4, so they are better than Snagga, but an attack of 1 and a charge of 1, they might as well just be feathers blowing at the enemy. They're useless. But a good unit in the early game are your Uruk Raiders, or Uruk-hai Raiders, the more defensive version of the Uruk Reavers. So if your Reavers are your shock troops, your Orc Band are your arrow fodder, then your Uruk-hai Raiders are your early game line troops. Their morale is slightly better. Their defense is quite a lot higher. They can hold the line. They are militia, but they can at least hold against other militia. So in your ranged options, you've got your Snagger Javelins, Snagger Skirmishers. Remember that if any of these units are not in your game, it's either because they are new or we have re-added them. There's no bugs in 1.2. Well, there are a few, but there aren't anything related to this. So if you haven't got one of these units, it's because it's either brand new or we've re-added it or taken it away. So there might be a unit that you've got that isn't here. That would just mean it's taken away. I only say that because in the Dale video, I forgot to mention that the Yeoman Cavalry have been removed and the Billmen were a replacement of the Yeoman Cavalry. So, because 2 people commented and said, oh, you missed the Yeoman Cavalry somehow. And I said, no, they're gone. So that's just a qualifier for that. But you also get Snagger Skirmishers. Now, they are useless. 1 defense, 1 attack, 1 charge. Pitiful in the actual game. But the 5 Javelin attack allows them to at least do damage. So you don't want to get them involved in melee at all, and ideally you don't want them getting shot with arrows because they'll just die. But if you can get them to fire their javelins off, you'll at least do some damage. You got the Uruk-hai archers, who are quite solid archers, actually. Archery in real life has always essentially been down to 2 things, your strength and your accuracy. And while the Orcs and the Uruks aren't particularly accurate, Uruks are very strong, so they can at least pack a very powerful punch, even if it's not particularly accurate. So their accuracy is low, but their range is not too bad, and their actual missile attack is quite high compared to Orcs and compared to lesser humans. Because let's not forget that Uruks are physically stronger than, say, farmers and non-trained military personnel of the human and elven nations. So that is reflected often in their aggressive stats. But those were the Uruk-hai archers. And then finally, of course, you get Warg Marauders. And these are the Isengard Wargs. No different to any of the other Wargs, save possibly a slightly higher defense, owing to their link to the armoured version of Isengard, the armoured orcs of Isengard. But they're just Wargs. They scare horses because they're actually camels, and their attack's quite high, their charge is quite high, their hit and run, very good at it. But because they are camels, their model's always a bit buggy, and they don't... The camel battalions never have, no matter how much you try and fiddle with it, they're never as organised and as ordered as the horses, which means that translates on the battle map to meaning that they often go off in weird shapes and patterns, and you'll often get half of your camels will engage the enemy and the other half will just sit around doing nothing. So the wargs can be very tricky to use from a purely gameplay perspective, because the camels were never integrated into the game very well by the game's creators, creative assembly. So then on to the first units you're going to get after the barracks event are the half-orcs, and these are pretty damn cool. You've got Baneguard and Spearguard. Now the Spearguard are defensive, as you might imagine, and they're your first real line troops. 17 defense, attack of 6. Everything else is average. They're coming along quite nicely. They've got a spear, so they're good against cavalry. Remember, you can pause the video. The intent of this is to pause the video if you want to really read all these things and see everything. But they've got an average morale, the Baneguard. They're effective against armour with their big mauls, two-handed mauls and two-handed axes. Their attack is 7, so only 1 better than the Reavers, but their defense is substantially better, twice the defense of the Reavers, so a much better version of shock troops. But if it's shock troops you're really interested in, then you need look no further than the Berserkers, the game's quintessential shock troop, the Berserker. Berserkers have an 11 attack. They frighten nearby enemy infantry. They're effective against armor. They get a bonus against cavalry. They are impetuous in their morale response, which means they take morale shocks very well. They have a very good morale, and they can't flee. Add on to that a good charge bonus of 8 and a defense of 12. They are really powerful. Let's not forget as well, they have 2 hit points. One of the few units in the game. There are genuinely about 5 standard units in the game that have more than 1 hit point. I think they're Barrow-wights, Skin Changers, Berserkers, Nazkai, and I can't think of the other, but I'm sure there's another one. But it's a very rare occurrence having 2 hit points. So these are really, really powerful. They're really aggressive. However, they have one glaring flaw, and those astute amongst you will know what it is. Arrows. They have no armor and they have no shield, and defense skill is removed from the equation when you're shot with arrows, which means that they will fall to arrow fire like rain takes down snow. Like they really, really, really fall to arrow fire. They've got no defense against it, so you need to ensure they are not shot. Basically, even if a unit of, say, Breland militia archers who have, I think, a 2 missile attack, or even a 1 missile attack unit, if you go against the Misty Mountains, you come up against Snagger archers. Even Snagger archers will shred through berserkers, so you've really got to be careful. But other than that, they are the game's glass cannon until you bring in the Nazgûl, who are a slightly better version of them. But they're really powerful. There are no archers nor cavalry at this middling tier, so you need to go up to your elites to get those. And we will start with Uruk-hai infantry. And there they are, the unit everyone loves about Isengard. They do look phenomenal, let's be honest. Uruk-hai is so much cooler than standard orcs. And especially the Isengard Uruk-hai. And especially one thing that we all love from the films, let's be honest, is the armor design. I don't think there is any armor in the movies that anyone can look at and think, oh, you know what, that looks terrible. It might not be what Tolkien created it as he was quite fond of chainmail over plate mail, and he doesn't. I don't think he talks about plate mail for anyone but to the dwarves, and even then he still uses chainmail more often. But still, I think they look damn cool. And they are the Uruk-hai infantry. They, like all orcs, get bonuses. Yeah, so all orcs get fighting bonuses in mountains, and you get negative bonuses in desert. You are unaffected in grassland. They got better morale, better response, and as a side note, they get a specific bonus against the main horse used by Rohan, which is pretty much all of Rohan's cavalry except their elites get the Rohan horse. Or I think, in fact, all of Rohan's cavalry get the Rohirric horse, bar possibly one or two. And so they get a bonus against Rohan's cavalry. They are bred to destroy Rohan's cavalry in this game. And they have a good attack of 8, 23 defense. They're hold the line troops. They're very good at it. They are useful, and they are Isengard's flagship, along with their very famous counterpart, the pikemen. Courtesy of the film and the fact that anyone who fights a cavalry nation would use pikes or something thereof, you get the pikemen. Uruk-hai pikemen, very powerful, solid defense of 18. Their attack is high as the attack of 5, which is high for pikes. They get their bonuses obviously against mount, standard resources there, standard stats there, good morale response. They get a bonus against all mounts, so no special bonus against Rohirric horses. They just get a bonus against all cav, and they're very powerful. They really are. Uruk-hai pikemen are one of the best pikes, and people are kind of afraid to fight against Uruk-hai pikemen. But remember, if you flank them or you hit them in the rear, then they're really easy to kill, even Uruk-hai ones. But at this tier, there's nothing for the cavalry, but there is the first proper archer unit, and they are, of course, Uruk-hai crossbows. Crossbows always have a much higher damage than bows, but they fire slower, they are less accurate, and they need line of sight. Their arcing shot is useless, and unless every single man in the line has a clear line of sight, they tend to be terrible. So they require a lot more micromanagement than bows, but a solid volley with crossbows will really punch home. They're effective against armor with a high attack of 10. Once they've done with their crossbows, they're not too bad. The 6 melee and a 17 defense. I mean, that's better than some of the Breland units, some of the Enid Wyeth and Dunland units if you want to attack Dunland. Do note, I didn't actually mention it, but you can train a few Dunlending units. They're not present in the video, but you need to be allied with Dunland, I believe. No, you don't. Sorry. So, as long as you've got Isengard, you can train a few Dunlending units out of Isengard, even if you've defeated Dunland. But I've not included them in this video, so you'll just have to check the Dunland video whenever that comes out and see which ones you can train if you want to read about their stats. Or indeed, just load up the game and read their stats from the recruitment menu in Isengard. Right then, so we come to your Uber elites. So up until this point, everything is available everywhere, from your wargs all the way across and all of these. None of these are restricted, right up to this point, including the crossbows, sorry, as well. I should have grouped them in that group. But the rest are restricted. So the remaining 5 there, one being a general, the remaining 4 are all restricted. But they are your Uber. This is your Uber section. And these are the guards of the Orthanc. Now, these are only available in Orthanc. You can get them you can get like maybe 2 units of them before the barracks event, and then that doubles in frequency. So in the space where you would have got 2 units of them before the barracks event, after you can get about 4. So they'll always be in your army if you've got Orthanc. They're just good spearmen. 28 defense, 6 attack, 4 charge. They're just a good counterpart along with the Uruk-hai infantry. So if the infantry are quite a bit more aggressive, the guards of the Orthanc are a bit more defensive. And they do have a very high defense, 15 armor as well. So do watch out for armor piercing. They can make a shield wall. They get a bonus against cavalry as you'd expect. And morale is good. Morale response is good. They're just good spearmen. They're just a good spearman unit. And they are Dunlendings. They're not orcs. They're Dunlendings that have been given Isengard's armor and trained up. And on that same theme, we'll go over to the sentries because they're located in the same place. The sentries of the Orthanc are just your best crossbow unit, but again, they only come from the Orthanc. Now, ignore the stakes because those are going to be edited, but although I think this unit has been chosen to be Isengard's stake-wielding unit. But they're not. These ones aren't actually that great. So once they've finished with their crossbows, you will find that the Uruk-hai crossbowmen are actually better than the sentries of the Orthanc. But the sentries are better at range. Their missile attack is 11. Their accuracy is higher because they're humans. Their range is ever so slightly higher as well, I believe. No, it's the same, sorry. Because there's only one tier of crossbows. Yeah, but their accuracy is higher. So, whereas the Uruk-hai crossbowmen are average, the sentries are high. Because they're just smoking all that weed. But they're just good crossbows, really. They're the best archer unit that you can get, but they're not very good in melee, so do be cautious. I mean, they're not terrible, but they're not going to win any battles or do any wonders or anything. So then we will come to the Trolls. Now, the Trolls, obviously massively fan fiction, but it just seemed... It was indeed as well added even before I joined. There's always been Trolls of the White Hand, and it's just a troll wearing Isengard's armour. They're just good trolls. Now, they're only, again, available in, I think, Orthanc. They might be available everywhere, but I'm pretty sure it's just Isengard. Their morale is good. They're trolls. I'm not going to go through any of the stats really. Everyone knows how trolls are used. Remember that trolls are actually not counted as cavalry. They are counted as large infantry. So pikes and spears and things like that have no benefit against them. You kill trolls with siege equipment, armor piercing, be that bows or arrows, and just general ranged. Those are the best ways to kill them. With the outright best being siege equipment, closely followed by armor piercing, like crossbowmen, things like that, and then just armor piercing melee. But the trolls of the White Hand are just really good, and they look pretty cool because they are just trolls with Isengard armor, as I say. So, but they only come out of Orthanc. I know it doesn't say it in the description, but I'm almost certain they only come out of Orthanc. Oh, they can't hide, as that just said, so you can never hide them. So then we come to the Nazkai, the unit you get for getting the ring. Now, in form or function, they just look like standard Uruk-hai with a berserker sword, but in actuality, they're outrageous. A really, really, really powerful unit. And they are supposed to have an upgrade look. Like, they're meant to look like that, and then they upgrade to look like this. Oh, they have a pretty cool voice as well. But that's by the by anyway. They inspire nearby troops. They get a bonus against cavalry. They're effective against armor. They frighten nearby enemies. Their attack is 14 compared to the Berserker's 12. Or 11, sorry. Their charge is 12 compared to the Berserker's 8. And their defense is 28 compared to the Berserker's 12. So the Berserker has no shield, no armor, just 12 defense skill. And the Nazkai takes that a step further. Its defense skill is slightly less, owing to it being bulky and clunky with its armor, but it gets 18 armor. It gets the armor of the Uruk-hai, slightly improved version. So they no longer have the only weakness that Berserkers have, which is arrow fire. That is removed for the Nazkai. It's still the best way to kill them because they have no shield, and arrows are only going to be affected by the 18 armor. But it really massively reduces the power of arrows against them. So the easiest way to bring them down. The other way to bring them down, if you're watching this to learn how to defeat Isengard, is swamp them with units. They suffer from having a small number of units, which means they can be stun locked. Unfortunately, the game animations can go on and on and on, and an animation can just loop. And if an enemy is if it's doing this "I'm stunned" animation, it can do that animation indefinitely if it's being attacked by a lot of enemies all in one go. So if one Nazkai is being attacked by, say, 6 units of an enemy, they might be able to stun lock him and eventually then bring him down because he's got 2 hit points as well. So you want to micromanage these a bit. You don't want to ever get them surrounded because then they go from being amazing to basically just being mannequins waiting to die. So you've got to be very cautious. Their morale is excellent. It is locked. You can get them out of Isengard or Barad-dûr. That's cool. I didn't realise I or Hummingbird added that. And they get a bonus against all forms of mounts. So they're just outrageous. But that leaves us at the end then with your standard bodyguard. They are just better versions of the Uruk-hai infantry. So their attack is 9. Their charge is the same. Their defense is 1 better. Down the bottom is all still basically the same. They're just a slightly better version of Uruk-hai infantry, but with a few less numbers. So nothing really amazing. But in the early game, they're very good. They are very good because those are quite high stats. Especially against like the Enid Wyeth bodyguard if you went one-on-one with them, although they're archers, so you struggle doing that, but because they'd always skirmish, the buggers. But that is the... Oh, I pressed the wrong one. Let's bring everything back. Nope. There we are. Got it all back. Right, group everything up. Give it all over to the AI. Stand it in a line. And start the battle. So, we are up against an army of Rohan, formed up from... I just clicked the autofill button, so... They all are marching past. They've got a ballista. Oh, they've got 4 ballistae, 8 ballistae. Some yawling axemen making their way around the side. And again, we're all skewing off, hitting each other in weird ways. Some cavalry charging over there, though. Nope, those are Riddermark skirmishers. Ah, sorry. I had to cough. The AI really doesn't like these engagements. I think it's because I put them all in a line, and then it's like, it's basically, first of all, it just forms itself up into what it wants to actually do, and then it attacks. The Warg Marauders heading in against the Helmingers. The defenders of Helm's Deep, the Hornburg. There's lines of the Anglo-Saxon-inspired Rohan army. Oh, Guards of the Medicel, the dismounted version of the Royal Guard, are blundering through with their bright green capes. Ploughing on their own. The Isengard not really doing anything. But Isengard is one of the best Orc factions to play. It's why it's repeatedly asked for me to do an Isengard campaign. Everybody asks for it. Because they've just got such variety. You get the few Dunlending units, you get some cool militia units, you get the cool Uruk-hai, you get the Nazkai if you get the Ring, which is again more variety, that the Ring script's different for you. Of course, you get Saruman, you get Lurtz and Ugluk. You start in a really cool location with Rohan and Ennard Wythe, and then potentially Gondor, and then even into the heartlands of Bree. All of those options available to you. Our captain's already died. Uthak. And Isengard is very popular. I'd say Gondor is the most popular faction in the game, and I think Isengard is the most popular evil faction. Oh, the sentries are running away. And we've not really seen too much battling going on here, and they're already chasing us down, but I think I'll end it there. So thank you very much for watching, if indeed you have. Apologies for the delay, I was busy at the weekend. If you've got any questions or comments, pop them in the comments below. And do, of course, if you want an in-depth look at the stats of each of the units, and you can endure the far more poorer quality microphone I had a year and a half ago, then by all means watch the video that will pop up in a minute in the end screen things, or it's in the comments below. And that's the older video. But for now, and until we speak again, Navar Naden Peramad Melunin, and farewell.